Bell's Amusement Park, 1997. On July 26, 1997, 14-year-old Nicholas Ridenour went to Bell's Amusement Park in Tulsa, Oklahoma. It was a warm summer evening filled with laughter, flashing lights, and the smell of popcorn in the air. Families were having fun, and the park's old wooden roller coaster, the Wildcat, roared through the night sky. Nicholas was excited to ride it. The Wildcat wasn't the biggest or fastest coaster, but its sharp turns and steep drops made it one of the park's most thrilling rides. He climbed in, buckled his seatbelt, and waited for the coaster to begin. As the train sped along the tracks and neared the end of the ride, something terrible happened. Ignoring the warning signs and safety rules, Nicholas unbuckled his belt and stood up while the coaster was still moving, but he lost balance just as the coaster turned sharply. In a split second, his head struck a wooden support beam above the track. The impact was instant and devastating. Park staff rushed to help, but there was nothing they could do. Nicholas died instantly from his injuries. Investigators later examined the ride and found no mechanical problems. The seatbelts and safety systems were working perfectly. The tragedy had happened only because Nicholas had stood up during the ride. The horrifying accident left a dark shadow over Bell's Amusement Park. Over the years, lawsuits piled up, attendance dropped, and the park's once bright reputation faded away. 10 years later, Bell's Amusement Park closed for good, its memory forever tied to one heartbreaking night on the Wildcat. Walt Disney World, 2009. On July 5, 2009, at Walt Disney World in Florida, the park was quiet, the fireworks were over, and most guests were asleep. But high above the ground, the famous Disney monorail was still making its final trips for the night. Inside the sleek monorail pink was 21-year-old Austin Vuenenberg, a young pilot who loved his job and took pride in keeping guests safe. He was finishing his shift, unaware that in just minutes something terrible was about to happen. At the Transportation and Ticket Center, operators were switching the tracks, a normal process to move trains from one line to another. But that night, a deadly mistake happened. The control panel operator failed to line up the track switch correctly. Because of this, Monorail Pink was sent backward onto the same track where Monorail Purple was heading straight toward it. In the darkness of the tunnel, the two monorails appeared in front of each other, and then came a violent head-on crash. The impact crushed the front of Monorail Pink, trapping Austin inside the cabin. Emergency crews rushed to help, but it was too late. Austin Wuenenberg died at the scene, the first fatal accident in the Disney monorail's 38-year history. The news shocked the entire Disney community. Investigators from the National Transportation Safety Board later confirmed that it wasn't a technical failure. It was human error caused by miscommunication and mistakes during the track switch. After the tragedy, Disney made major safety changes. They stopped allowing guests to sit in the front cabin and redesigned the entire switching system with new safety checks and automatic controls. For years, the monorail had been a symbol of Disney's magic and innovation. But that night, it became a heartbreaking reminder that even in the happiest place on Earth, one small mistake can have deadly consequences. West Edmonton Mall, 1986. On June 14, 1986, the West Edmonton Mall in Alberta, Canada, the biggest indoor mall in the world, was full of people enjoying their weekend. And in the center of it all was the Mindbender, a huge triple-loop roller coaster, famous for being the world's largest indoor ride. That evening, 24-year-old Rod Chico and three of his friends got into the last car of the coaster. They pulled down their lap bars as the train climbed toward the top of the glowing glass dome. Moments later, the ride took off, racing through loops and turns at almost 100 kilometers per hour. But halfway through the ride, disaster struck. As the train sped around a sharp curve, people nearby heard a loud metal snap. The last car began to shake and throw out sparks. Then, in an instant, it lifted off the track, swung to the side, and smashed into a concrete pillar. The car broke apart. 3 people were killed instantly. Rod survived but suffered terrible injuries. Both legs, ribs, and his back were broken. He spent months in the hospital learning how to walk again. When investigators looked into what happened, they found that 4 important bolts on the last car's wheel assembly had come loose, likely never tightened properly after maintenance. Without those bolts, the car couldn't stay on the rails. After the tragedy, the Mindbender was shut down for over a year. Engineers redesigned it, adding stronger wheels, new brakes, and seatbelts for every passenger. When it reopened, the train had 3 cars instead of 4, but for the families of the victims, the changes came too late. The Mindbender disaster remains Canada's worst amusement park accident, a tragic reminder that one small mistake in safety can cost lives. Expoland, 2007. On May 5th, 2007, Children's Day in Japan, families crowded into Expoland, a famous amusement park in Osaka. The air was full of laughter, music, and excitement. Kids ran toward one of the park's biggest rides, the Fujin Region 2, a stand-up roller coaster known for its fast speed and sharp turns. But within moments, joy turned into horror. As the coaster raced around a high-speed curve, people heard a sudden metallic snap. One of the cars jumped off the track. Screams echoed through the air as the car slammed into the steel safety railing. 19-year-old Yoshino Kogawara, a university student, was riding in that car. Her head hit the metal barrier and she was killed instantly. 19 other passengers were injured, many frozen in shock, unable to move or scream. When investigators arrived, the truth was shocking. The axle that caused the accident had never been replaced in 15 years. It was worn down and unsafe, but the park's managers had faked maintenance records, pretending everything was fine. It was pure carelessness. Years of ignoring safety rules to save money. The public was furious. News of the cover-up spread across Japan. Expoland's reputation collapsed overnight, and within months, the park was shut down for good. The once busy rides were left to rust in silence. What began as a day of celebration ended as one of Japan's darkest amusement park tragedies, a reminder that even the happiest places can hide deadly secrets behind the laughter. Disneyland, 1964. On May 15, 1964, 15-year-old Mark Maples went to Disneyland with his friends. They decided to ride the Matterhorn bobsleds, one of the park's most exciting roller coasters. The ride was full of people eager to experience the icy mountain adventure. Mark sat inside one of the small bobsled cars, fastened his seatbelt, and waited for the ride to start. As the coaster climbed the tall hill near the end of the ride, something went terribly wrong. For reasons no one could fully explain, Mark suddenly unbuckled his seatbelt and stood up while the ride was moving. Mark lost his balance and was thrown out of the car, falling hard onto the fiberglass track below. The fall injured him badly, but the danger wasn't over yet. Before operators could stop the ride, another bobsled came rushing down the track. It hit Mark, causing even more serious injuries. Panic spread through the area as workers hit the emergency stop and ran to help him. Paramedics arrived within minutes and rushed Mark to a hospital in Anaheim, trying to save his life. But sadly, he died shortly after reaching the hospital. The accident shocked everyone. Disney immediately closed the ride and started a full investigation. They confirmed that the seatbelts had been working properly. Mark had taken his off himself. After the tragedy, Disney added stricter safety rules, clearer warnings, and better ride procedures to make sure nothing like this ever happened again. It became one of Disneyland's first and most heartbreaking deaths, a sad reminder that even one small mistake on a ride can lead to something truly tragic, even in the happiest place on Earth. Six Flags Astroworld, 1997. On August 9, 1997, the Six Flags Astroworld theme park in Houston, Texas was alive with excitement. Families filled the park, children screamed with joy, and the sound of roller coasters echoed across the hot summer air. But behind the fun, maintenance workers were hard at work keeping the ride safe and running smoothly. One of them was assigned to work on the Excalibur roller coaster, a large steel ride known for its speed and sharp turns. That afternoon, the worker was on the track performing routine maintenance. It was a dangerous task that required coordination with ride operators to ensure no trains were moving while workers were on the tracks. But that day, something went terribly wrong. Due to a tragic miscommunication, the roller coaster train was released while the worker was still on the track. The ride operator didn't know anyone was there. The train sped around the curve of the track, and before anyone could react, it struck the worker. The impact was devastating. Other employees rushed to help and called emergency services, but the injuries were too severe. He died at the scene just doing his job. Visitors were evacuated, and investigators quickly arrived to find out how such a tragedy could happen in a place designed for fun and safety. After the investigation, Six Flags introduced strict new safety procedures, requiring multiple confirmations before any ride could move, and new communication systems to protect workers behind the scenes. The death at Astroworld became a heartbreaking reminder that even in the happiest places, danger can strike. If you're not subscribed, you'll probably never see us again. But if you are, you're one of the few who can handle what's coming next.